Ladies and gentlemen, it is August 25th, 2010, and this is Day 9, daily number 167. And I had an awesome day because I was asked to be the best man at one of my best friend's upcoming weddings. He got engaged, and oh my god, and I'm certain that she cried. She's all, all emotional, and my friend's an engineer, so he was very methodical with it. He was very like, oh yeah, when is predicted. It's pretty standard sort of engagement, sort of pretty typical proposal. I was like, nice, nice. So I'm feeling awesome about that. I'm all like, oh, I'm feeling about equivalent to the mood on my t-shirt. So today we're actually going to be taking a look at a little game between Idra and Morrow, two players you may have heard of if you watch the Intel Extreme Masters Global Game Challenge Cologne. As you can tell, my glasses are like super broken, so that's pretty fun. I'm enjoying that quite a bit. Wondering if I have any entertaining stories to tell you for the day. Probably not. I did get up at 4 in the morning, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And then I have to get on an airplane and go to Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow morning because I'm going to MLG. Going to be doing some shoutcasting there. So I'm hoping to have time to record the daily for Thursday and Sunday, like tonight sometime. Just like miss sleep and do that. So that way you guys can max out on day 9-ish while I'm AFK. Yeah. But the game I wanted to look at today, I'm slightly disappointed that it's a Terran vs Zerg because traditionally I do a lot of those. Even when it was in Brood War, I did a lot of those just because it's a very interesting matchup. But the reason I liked this one is because it's a good example of what I would call Brood War logic. It's the kind of logic you get from playing Brood War a lot. Yeah, Brood War players. Woo! Trying to rock out with the Brood War. Oh, I have a funny story to tell you. This is awesome. So when I was actually at the Intel Extreme Masters, Toby, one of the guys working there, just came by the desk. He's like, hey, you guys doing okay? You need any water? And I was like, yeah, man. We're like totally set and ready to go. He's like, yeah, rock out, man. And I meant to throw out the horns. I meant to just be like, yeah, Toby. But instead I just gave him the finger. That's what happened. I was like, all right, sweet, man. Sweet. And I didn't realize I just gave him the finger. So he's like all shocked at me, and I was just like, I messed up. I meant to throw out the horns. And it's understandable to trip over your words, but it's not understandable to not use the right finger on your hand. So that was pretty awesome. So I totally shot him the bird. Either way, totally take that, Toby. You deserve it. Yeah. But anyways, so there's what I would call Brood War logic, which is this underlying good fundamental sense of big, broad game decisions that you're going to be making in the course of a game where the focus is on economy. And really in StarCraft 2, the focus on everything is economy. So let's actually take a step back and talk about Brood War for a moment, and about how that was all about economy. Really, at the start of time in Brood War, people only thought about ways to one base each other all in and all this sort of stuff. They found all these little tricks. And then the best players became the ones who figured out how to early expand and to take their natural and just blast the front down with more units. And then, pretty much nowadays, what defines solid play is, every normal build has a clearly defined time for when you take your third. That is your main, your natural, and then your third, your second expansion, the expansion after your natural. That is a huge concern, and that's what really defines the mid-game, and the mid-game really defines the entire game, so third bases are super important. But what you end up seeing in StarCraft 2 is a lot of people who don't have the StarCraft 1 sense. They don't have that Brood War sense of how to play the game. So you'll see people who will do this beautiful one-base push. It's impeccable. They'll do a 2 Warp Gate and Robo-Bay timing push. It's just great. Oh, it's so splendid. And then they'll attack, and the attack won't work, and then they won't have expanded. And a lot of attacks in Brood War were attacks that didn't work, but in a sense they're there to do enough damage to buy you time to get up an expansion, which is really all you need. Because if you're getting up the expansion, then you're setting yourself up to win at the later stages of the game. So this Morrow vs. Idra game is an amazing example of a lot of fundamental concepts that you learn in Brood War, but not in a lot of other games, especially not in games like Warcraft 3. I mean, no offense to Warcraft 3, I'm not saying it's like an awful game by any means, but in Warcraft 3 there really is not a lot of expanding in the way that in Brood War there's a lot of expanding. So these sorts of decisions tend to just not even come up. And again, the example that I used yesterday was when Diapollo was telling the story of the famous British Zerg player Midian, who killed a Protoss player's Phoenix in Starcraft 2, and the Phoenix didn't even really do any damage. So what did he do? He double expanded after that. Like, he even already had his natural expansion. He just, like, took the gold, and he took this other base over here, because he knew that he could, because anytime you have a window to expand in Brood War, you would expand. So what I love a lot is the way that Morrow's play was kind of focused around that. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, was the good old expanding focus. But just in general, the way that your build ends up being constructed in a fashion that is geared towards taking more bases and geared towards being constantly aggressive throughout the game. Just constant aggression and expansion timing is the two things I want to talk about with Morrow's build. Now, this, again, the point of this Day 9 Daily, and the point of all Day 9 Dailies, is analysis and trying to be a better gamer. That is the tagline I've invented for myself to help me be more cool and to feel like a cooler person. But that is true. I'm not going to do too much, oh, he's going to be doing this. I'm not going to do too much, complaining about imbalance or any of that jazz. Again, the focus is on how we can take these ideas and use them. Even if the game gets patched into a completely different game, we still want to have the tools to smash nerds. Excellent, excellent. So we have Idra doing what I would call the safe play in Zerg vs. Terran. You get your gas before your pool, so that way you can get the Zergling speed right when the pool finishes, and Zergling speed can hold off Reapers, it can hold off Hellions. Very, very safe way to open. And it's kind of funny because at the Intel Extreme Masters, every single Zerg player did this against Terran. And I was really running out of ways to just talk about how safe that was. I mean, Diapollo and I were like, oh, is another 14 gal. Oh, this is a really safe play, ladies and gentlemen, as you may note from the 20 other games that we've been casting. Because I think we did probably cast, 27 or so games up to this point. We'd done 4 best of 5s, all of which had 5 games, and this was game 3 of this series. And you'll note that 20 plus 3 is 27, so I guess my math was correct. But either way, Morrow is doing the usual style of play for Terran these days, which is to open up with Reaper and then to get speed for that Reaper. This gas seems a little bit delayed because ordinarily you can start that Nitro pack a touch earlier. There's the Nitro pack going down. Normally the Reapers maybe at like 17 seconds or so when you start the tech lab, or excuse me, the Nitro pack. But either way, we have the Reaper popping out, and the reason people go for these Speed Reapers early on is there's not that much that Zerg can do about it. If we look at the spawning pool speed, just notice the pacing that's getting done, and if we look at the Nitro pack speed, the Nitro pack is really catching up to that. And the Reapers can spot our Xel'Naga watchtowers, that's great. So again, I already said this, but I'm just going to say it again. I'm going to say it again, because I just want to reinforce this point with my knuckles, okay? I want this to be clear. Always finding good opportunities to be aggressive, and thinking about how to expand often. So we are looking at this Reaper. This Reaper I like because it is already an opportunity to be aggressive. Now, Morrow and I actually talked a little bit before his finals match the day before, and one thing that I said, and I'm sure he probably decided to do this on his own, but I'm just totally going to act like it was all me and take credit for it because I'm very powerful. Yeah, I'm very powerful. Is that I said that with Reapers, you shouldn't really be doing too much attacking by jumping up a cliff. You should do a lot of retreating by jumping down cliffs or jumping up cliffs. Whenever you jump up a cliff like this to try to attack, you run the risk of losing a lot of Reapers. I don't really like jumping up here to do an attack. I like more pushing at the front with the Reapers and utilizing their speed as the basis for doing a lot of micro or stretching your advantage with them. I don't like the idea of using their cliff jumping abilities because it's too easy to botch. So Morrow doing what, again, is the usual transition in this matchup these days. to get 3 barracks Reaper. And by the way, just little things. Note how good this timing is, that the tech lab on these barracks finish in such a way that this original barracks can line up the timing with them. See how nicely that's lined up? All of them. That's one of those little fundamental things. A lot of times people will have these 2 barracks finish right when this Reaper's like halfway done, and they'll just think to themselves, well, whatever. That's normal. No, start your buildings in a way that everything times up nicely. And oh, this looks like Morrow's going to be going all in. We're going to see in a minute that he's not. He's not actually setting himself up to go all in. Either way, Morrow patiently waiting with these Reapers. This move I thought was a little bit risky. I found that to be a little bit risky. I'm sure he's going to do some attacking. There coincidentally are no Zerglings, but we've seen Damaga send his second Overlord right to here, so we can spot that. So, you know, if there were any spotting going on there, you could easily pick that off with the Lings. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just so boring I have to yawn. Oh, goodness. So here's a little bit of a miss micro. Oh, but you see, here's why I like Reapers, is that retreat that you can do. The retreating is what I really, really like. Now, of course, I want to give some credit to Idra here. How awesome is that? Spreading the creep super early. Creep is what's going to keep Idra alive here. And then, of course, we see that there are 2 more tech labs going down. Yet 2 more tech labs. I dislike this tech lab timing because, again, note that these 2 tech labs are finishing when these other Reapers are in the middle of their production. So when these finish, they can't line up. I dislike that. But so here's the constant aggression portion. These Reapers are not going to be doing any suiciding. They're not going to be doing any suiciding. Too often you will see players start suiciding. They will look at their Reaper count and they will do what I call getting a boner, which does not mean that they actually get an erection while playing, but they get overeager and they freak out and they think, oh, this queen has lost like 20 life. I will sacrifice everything to kill this queen. No, you want constant aggression. Notice what Morrow's going to be doing with this. He's just going to be microing very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. And there's a lot of repetition in this. It's a lot of back and forth here. He's not going to attack here and then think to himself, oh, the roaches are here. Let me pop up into the main and try to suicide to kill off a bunch of drones. No, he's going to keep the aggression nice and constant, nice and constant. And because Morrow is focusing all his money on Reapers, notice Reapers coming out of here, Reapers coming out of here, all Reapers, he has enough money to build a command center. Cool, cool, very cool. Constant aggression, and he's getting up an expansion. He's not going all in. He's not continuing to make Marauders at this point. He's instead continuing to make Reapers and just picking off things at the front. And Idra. Now, Idra is going to be pretty Reaper-proof this game. He's getting a lot of roaches, and thanks to his brilliant fast creep spread, he's starting to spread the creep over to the left. That's going to help keep him alive. And yeah, look, slowly picking off the Reapers. Morrow not doing anything too nuts, just slowly trying to advance. Yeah, there's a weakened roach that's a little bit far behind, but note that these Reapers have a range of 4.5, and the roaches have a range of 3. It's very easy to mess up and take shots from the roach. So even though one of them is weak, if it's a little bit behind, no reason to run up there and sacrifice more hits. So I guess there's really 3 things I want to emphasize, which is relentless aggression, constantly attacking, constantly expanding, and not trying to do anything too extreme. This is very straightforward what Morrow's doing. Just back and forth and back and forth. And then just attack and move and attack and move. And here's the command center that's being upgraded to the orbital command. He's setting himself up for the upgrades. He's getting barracks 7 and 6. It's a lot of barracks. A lot of barracks. And now Morrow's got to be a little careful. Roach speed, I believe, is getting pretty damn close to finished. It is finished. And that's about as close to finished as you can get. And sure, I don't mind these sorts of things. I don't mind this. But it wasn't an obsession of Morrow's at the early stages of the game. I would honestly say that this was triggered by the fact that Roach speed was suddenly finished. And also, one little point, a micro, that we just saw for like half a second here. This is so small, but yet so awesome. Don't get into one control group syndrome. We do see that all these are in one control group. I don't think there's anything wrong with having 12 Reapers in one control group. But what we're going to see as these roaches come up is we're going to see Morrow just pull back the bottom half of them. He's going to pull back the bottom half while he's microing. He doesn't say, oh, they're all in one control group. I guess I'm committed to going one back up, one back up, one back up. Okay, watch this little subtle move. Oh, you see how those 4 moved independently? Did you see how those 4 were just selected and individually moved back? And you see how that formation, this line, is way better at dealing with this formation of roaches? You really should be adjusting your units that individually. No reason not to do that. And by the way, more little brilliance by Idra. Having those overlords that were already positioned to do spotting, have them do a little bit of creep vomiting. And, you know, I do think Morrow got a little overeager there. He took a few extra shots that he didn't necessarily need to take. That's great. That's great. So we're going to see more. We're going to see a lot more Brood War, what I would call the Brood War logic in the later stages of the game. But still early on, this is good stuff to note. Very important good stuff to note. We're also getting stim from Morrow. And, you know, part of the reason I like stim at this point is this is all pointing towards more aggression coming up soon. I mean, I think too often people have, there's like stages of people development. First it starts with the one base all in. And then people figure out that, yeah, I really need to get an expansion up pretty soon. So they do a little bit of thought on that. But then once they get the expansion up, too often people are thinking more about getting their money mix of unit to move out and attack. Here's a classic example I'm seeing a lot of Terran players do nowadays. They'll do some whatever early on, whether it be Hellions or Banshees early on, and then they will expand and start getting a lot of tanks and move out with a medevac, marine, tank mix in Terran vs. Zerg. Those are the 3 units, and it's actually almost exclusively those 3 units. That's about it. At the Intel Extreme Masters, that's what we saw players do. Neat. There's not anything, again, wrong with that, but there was this period of time where people would do the little harassment early on, and then there was a period later where they would do the big push, and then there's a whole range in between, and nothing at all. No use of the tanks, no use of the Marines, no use of the medevacs for the drops, nothing, nada, zip. And that's actually, that can cause some potential problems. So I love the fact that Morrow is already getting stim early on, already getting all these barracks early on, basically asserting that he is going to be doing some attacking early on. No upgrades, I don't like that. I love my upgrades. Oh god, that was such a boring thing to say. Oh, I'm so sorry. And there's a scan going off. Okay, so you heard me say I'm leery of Reapers popping up onto the high ground because of not being able to get any spotting going on. But, you know, if you spend a scan to do that, that's awesome. And here's a very, very nice play. He's going to take a few hits. He loses, looks like 1 Reaper to take out a Baneling nest. Nifty. I'm also very impressed with Idra's ability to just play cool in this state. He has a lot of drones. A lot more drones than your average bear. He's on a map where you have a pretty big concern of this destructible rock as Zerg, but Idra playing well. Morrow continuing to attack. I want you to note that I'm actually going to reveal this timeline a little bit. So, he is actually at 12 minutes and 24 seconds into this game. And he still has a giant Reaper army. How often have you seen a Terran player just basically go, oh, whatever, and just sort of like blast in the front? And yeah, he loses all his Reapers, but that's fine because it was no longer time to have Reapers around. Their time was gone and done. Reapers are pretty much always useful, right? But it's important you just make use of them. Yeah, you see that? Lost 2 Reapers right there because you moved it to the high ground. Kind of a big risk. Want to conserve those Reapers a little bit more. And by the way, I thought that this was just fantastic use of the cliffing. To go onto this cliff instead of trying to sneak over to the ramp. I would have tried to sneak over to the ramp and mess that up. But now notice, right at the time when these Reapers are kind of dead, we only really have 2 Reapers left. Their prime is gone and past. Literally the instant that the Reapers have kind of lost relevancy in the game, here's a huge push with stim coming right up at the front. And little control here. And look at the little subtle control. Again, that's very Brood War-esque. To use those Marauders to individually target fire the roaches. So here's the stim, everything participating in the battle. Now notice these Marauders get individually selected to go over here and begin target firing all of these roaches. Great. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. And there's more stimming, and Idra having to do a little micro. Now, I want you to just note something. If we just go here to the Idra camp, notice that Idra's money is unusually high. If we go to this queen's energy is at 48, unusually high. This queen's energy is at 120, very unusually high for Idra. Because I'm not going to lie, Idra is damn good at Starcraft 2, in case you didn't know this. He's a good player. And yet, in the midst of a lot of aggression, he's getting a little bit flustered. He's starting to make mistakes. That's why we like aggression in this game. If you leave Idra alone and you don't attack him, he's going to play perfectly. And I do mean literally perfectly. He's just going to sit down and make 0 mistakes and win. And that's no fun. But again, if you have this idea of constant aggression going on, you're going to be in great shape. Now I'm going to poke around here a little bit. Okay, cool. Now I want you to note the position that Idra appears to be in this game. The position that he appears to be in. What's going on? He's having to rush units down here to defend. He doesn't even have his third set up. Terran is having a concerningly large army, continually reinforcing. I think this will slow down to normal, so I'll continue to move it up to the fastest. More nice micro by Morrow, pulling those smaller Marines into the back, letting the Marauders take the big hit at the front. Idra uncharacteristically getting over into the 1,000 range. Morrow had his money over 1,000. He's finally macroing pretty well, starting to keep things down. He's finally getting that factory. Not teching very quickly at all, just maintaining a lot of aggression. Wow, Idra up at 1,000, 1,000. Very uncharacteristic. Is he getting upgrades? That was a late upgrade. Now, I just want you to note how potent Morrow looks right now. And now Morrow is setting himself up to expand. He's been attacking nonstop. In fact, the only break Morrow is going to take from attacking is to kill off this gold rock so he can expand. And there's a command center that's going to be planted down momentarily. He doesn't quite have enough money to expand, but that's okay. He's going to make enough money to expand. Yep, right when he gets 400, throwing that down. And then Morrow's going to go directly back to attacking. Now, if this were a map like Steps of War, this command center could have been going down a lot earlier. Could have been going down earlier, perhaps maybe 1 minute ago. Right when Morrow was doing these battles here, there could have been another expansion going down. Because again, anytime you lose a big army, if you somehow have a secured expansion up as a result, oh my god, that's obviously very, very, very awesome. +1 upgrade going down. Idra also, Morrow also getting the starport up. It's a little bit late. It looks like this thing's rearranging to get a little reactor add-on himself. A little pair of SCVs. Looking pretty good. Now, really, if you look at the mixture of units that we see from Idra, again, god, money's so high, 1,200, 1,200. If you look at this mixture, description-wise, it's the correct mix. Largely Zergling Baneling, a lot of Roaches thrown in there. Zergling Baneling Mutalisk or Zergling Baneling Roach is good. That's the good mix of units. How often have you seen a Terran army move out and 1,000 Banelings crunching from both sides? And that's the all she wrote for the Terran player. You've probably seen that a grillion times. But we're seeing that because Morrow has been so aggressive, we obviously see that Idra is a little bit battered, right? This army doesn't feel as big as it really should. These Marauders are getting to be a little bit more active. And at the same time, let's say this attack just fails miserably. Oh, there's an expansion at a gold location, no less. And that money's very low for Morrow. I'm really liking that. I'm very, very much so liking that. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I really think Morrow could be doing a little bit more. He'll be doing some cute stuff, moving up here, moving through the center, picking off these overlords. A lot of Marauders here, a lot of Marines. Is he getting his upgrades? No, it could be better about the upgrades. Love those long-term benefits. Very, very, very good. Oh, God, to get those boring upgrades. Oh, gosh, sorry, I'm just still really jet-lagged. Fortunately, there's no chance I'm missing that 7 a.m. flight tomorrow morning because I'm going to be getting up at like 3. I'm going to go to bed right after my daily. Oh, it's going to feel so good. Alright, here, again, more aggression, setting himself up. Right as this expansion finishes, right as it might be potentially vulnerable, setting himself up for a drop at the top. Some more units kind of moving out here. Don't mind advancing forward a little bit while you have the drop action going on, because, oh, look at Idra. By the way, I don't know if you saw that insanely fast reaction time. Let me see if I can just get a look at that. So here's Idra, and look at the minimap, look at this blue cluster, he sees it. And There, all the units suddenly moved. That's so fast. That's excellent stuff. Our forces are under attack. Still have a little bit of issues with that voice acting, but you know, no big deal. I'm still gonna play Starcraft 2. I'm just not gonna play Zerg. LOL. Some good constant aggression, some good stuff. A little disappointing that again he did pinch it off with the fungal growth. That can happen. But at the same time, more aggression coming down here. Some units getting a little bit lost there in the mix. But this is just generally good play. It's less that it's Marine Marauder with some tanks, and it's how he's going Marine Marauder with tanks. And it's the fact that he's getting this expansion command center and using all that money. And here was a big misstep from Idra. Idra, who had been on the defense all game long, look, coming forward with a big mix of units and then just not really doing any damage because Morrow had himself so insanely well established from all that previous aggression that he was just in the most fantastic-ist shape. Now Morrow, what's happening here? He's taking another expansion command center down. Now I even want to back up to before when this command center went down because I think a lot of people... yeah, actually, this is right when it's going down, right when he had 600 minerals. A lot of people will have, like, 1,100, 1,200 minerals and go, whoops, I know I'm not supposed to have that much. Expand! Ta-da! I'm spending my money. I'm a smart player. But notice Morrow has 600 minerals. 600 minerals, and when you have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 barracks, a factory for tanks, and a starport with double medevac, when you have all those structures producing, you can convince yourself that you don't have the money to expand because you might queue up a little bit. Or we even see that Morrow isn't really, is actually missing a few guys producing out of some of these barracks. But what we're going to see is that this expansion command center is going down, and Morrow is going to be attacking a little bit in the future, and it's going to be happening right when he's going to want to take this expansion. Right as the expansion command center finishes for the 4th base, he is getting ready to move out and attack. That is very good timing and something that a lot of players are missing. Morrow is playing Terran, one of those races that traditionally is considered to be a not very big on expanding race. And yet Morrow is using that simple fundamental idea of when you are being the aggressor and you have the advantage, you should expand. In a lot of my other casts, I would word it as, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like that he is expanding while he is attacking. But I want to emphasize, no, it's actually kind of necessary to expand when you have these big, safe windows to do so. Very key. Now, Idra is getting put on the back foot a little bit. Idra now is kind of in an awkward position as Zerg. Now just go to the resource counting station. Look at this. Morrow up at 193 and Idra down at 140. That's quite unusual for this matchup. In fact, most Zerg players feel very comfortable against this Marine Marauder mix. In fact, just watch any games of Damaga's Zerg vs. Terran. That guy gets so many Banelings, he crushes Marine Marauder mixes. Now again, I want you to just look at this mixture. Not a lot of medevacs. Where are the medevacs? Well, looks like they were just left behind, kind of humorously. Idra has that money mix of units. He has all the Banelings, he has all the Infestors. But watch what's going to happen in this battle as we slow it down to perfect fungal growth. A bunch of Zerglings come up, Banelings rolling, getting good shots off, getting great shots off. More units trying to roll in here. Trying to get in. There's the Ultralisk Cavern, but oh my goodness, Morrow suddenly winding up on the good end. And the medevacs never even came into the battle. Why is this working? Oh my gosh. Again, so much of what we're slowly going to learn about StarCraft 2 is that it's not about this unit mix or that unit mix. It's about aggression timing, expansion timing, and little subtle control techniques. What Morrow is doing, a lot of Marines, a lot of Marauders, a dash of tanks. 90% of Zerg players will say, yeah, you just have Roach, Ling, Baneling, and Fester, and you end up crushing over that. And that feels true in Zergland because so many Terran players are not being aggressive. But as we can see, if you are against aggressive Terran players who have good expansion timing, they just end up having more stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this with the Protoss vs. Terran style I've been developing a little bit, which I hope I can do a tutorial on before I end up getting on that plane to Raleigh. But again, if you just make a lot of good core units, look, this is mainly Marines and Marauders. with a pretty good, I would say a pretty strong skew to the Marauder half. That's just a good core unit, and it's the usage of those core units, not the fact that you have them. Something like, you know, a Templar has pretty good usage. Oh, by the way, notice that while this attack was going on, and while more aggression is going on from Morrow, ta-da! An expansion command center setting up. Couldn't have been better timed. And only a Brood War player, only the Brood War players do such suave, sexy baller tactics. And look at this. We have medevacs going everywhere. Getting ready to go into the Zelnire watchtowers. Dropping here, dropping there. Dropping everywhere. Morrow's money still very, very low. I'm liking it. Nothing too extreme. He's not getting the Ravens with Hunter Seeker missiles or getting Ghosts with Snipe. He's getting the good old lot of barracks action. Lotto barracks. The splash of tanks, the splash of medevacs. Nothing too extreme. +2 is late. +2 is quite late. Would have liked to see that come up earlier. And the reason I'm saying it's late and I don't like that is not because of some imaginary concept that upgrades in the ethereal world are good and are only a positive thing. It's because he's focusing on core units. He's focusing on Marauders and Marines. He's not focusing on Ravens. He's not focusing on Battlecruisers. He's not focusing on Ghosts. He's not focusing on these funky support units. It's the core base meat units that deal most of the damage in the game. So upgrade the shit out of them, right? You're not spending your gas on cute units, so spend your gas on your upgrades. And again, I'm quite convinced that StarCraft 2 will drift more and more to people using core units plus upgrades and less on people using cutesy units and less expansions. Oh, there's yet another yawn. Oh man, that may have been a yawn or a moose mating call. There's going to be a pair of antlers just crashing through the window, ready for some hot mating season action, but little does that moose know, I'm just conveying the knowledge on the internet. That poor moose, I feel bad for him. So yeah, look at this mix. This mix of infantry plus medevac. And again, infantry minus ghosts. This mix of infantry should be very easily managed by fungal growths and banelings and zerglings, but because there's just so much of it from these well-timed expansions and this very well-timed attacking, just too much. And Idra eventually just crumbles to the pressure. Wasn't that just a marvelous game by Morrow? Oh god, I'm just looking around at this map, and right as this thing is going to be finished, look at this. This expansion is wrapping up, being done, and too often you'll see players, oh by the way, ask questions now. Too often you'll see players who they'll take their first base, they'll take their natural expansion, or I guess it's their second base, they'll take it, but around the time when their main is running out of money, so they'll just kind of transfer the workers. And there won't be really a ramp up of aggression or of unit production. It'll be kind of like a continuation. And you don't want to be in that continuation space. You want to constantly be ramping up, ramping up. Oh, people are asking why did it say Sean instead of Idra? Because Idra didn't have a Euro account at the tournament, so we played on Sean's thing. Let's see here. Let's see. What are some questions? Pope Amadeus says, I don't think Idra was in an unwinnable situation. Would you say he could have pulled that out with some neural parasite on the tanks and good positioning? What do I think about that? So, I think that perhaps a switch to, I actually think that neural parasite on the tanks, that to me feels like, again, one of those little specific tiny tactics, but I'm trying to think of something a little bit more broad. I think that getting infestors instead of banelings would have been a little bit better, because fungal growth is great at managing core-sized armies. And by that I mean, oh my god, here comes the huge ball, blah, fungal growth. You cannot advance anymore. It's like, you cannot pass. You just fungal growth them a couple times, and you can hang back. And you can fungal growth them a couple more times, you can hang back. And then getting lots of Zerglings and Roaches. And Idra kind of had not many Zerglings and Roaches and try to get a few more drones. I think that kind of cost him a little bit. But you can also get drones if you throw out the Infestors as well. But again, yeah, doing a few more slightly better positioning. I think that Morrow was just getting an edge in every single little fight, and then getting really good expansion timing. And you'll note that if you look at the half line on this map, so if we just go there and we take a look at the mini map, this line right here that I'm drawing, Idra only crossed it once. Idra only crossed it once to do a little bit of an engagement here, and the rest of the time Idra was on the defensive. How great is that for Morrow, who's trying to set up more expansions? That's great, 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 great. So let's see. So the Riot XL, Heyday 9, how can Zerg safely be aggressive early game? There's some other ideas I've been tossing around, such as like just get like here's a weird one: getting a hatch in your main, like before pool, because Reapers have been increasingly obnoxious to deal with. Or actually, not hatch in main like before pool, but like just hatch in main early on. Because it's just kind of tough to defend your expansion a lot of times. And, you know, if you play like Sen does, you should definitely watch his stream. There's a link to it on teamliquid.net. He does tend to get 3 hatches on 2 bases. And it's cool how many units he gets. But I'm actually also having trouble being aggressive with Zerg early game. I like being aggressive. It feels fancy. It also kind of depends on what you define as early game, because, again, I've been skipping the queen entirely. I early expand, and then I get a Roach Warren and a Lair, like, immediately, and then I get Spire, like, immediately, or if in a really tough spot, I get Roach Speed. But then I get a queen, like, later down the road, and that works out pretty cool, because you have the Roaches, which can defend pretty much any early attack, and then you have the Mutalisks really fast, which can also help defend all the other early attacks. But yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble with that. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the aggression early on. But I pretty much have said all my thoughts on it. So I'm going to yawn and just be so bored by that. Oh, that's so good. Oh yeah, so this is something I wanted to talk about, which is this PVT style I've been working on. And it's modeled largely off, I'm pretty sure he's French, a player named Adele. God, I hope I'm not getting that wrong. God, I hope I'm not calling him French if he's not. Whoo! Wouldn't that be an asshole move on my part? But it's the style that I saw him do in a Zotac Cup, where he's Protoss against Terran, and he opens up with the usual kind of fastish Warp Gate. He gets a gas, but he doesn't get the second gas, and he expanded pretty fast. And he got some more Warp Gates, then he expanded again. And almost his whole army was Zealot Stalker. That was it. So when Terran would come out with his little cutesy force, oh, I have some Marines, but I have some Ghosts, and I have my Metarax, and it's the perfect mix. And I mean, it's not like Adele had Colossi, you know, to like rip through a bunch of the Marines, and then had Templar to feed back the Ghosts, and Guardian Shields. He just had like 40 more food than his opponent, and way more Stalkers and Zealots. And Zealots are pretty damn good against Marauders and Marines, and the Stalkers are pretty damn good at tracking down the stimmed units and doing damage behind the Zealots, and it worked out pretty damn well. And that's awesome. And I've been trying to develop that a little bit more to say, okay, I'm going to have almost all Zealots and Stalkers, and I'm going to be expanding a lot, but let me extend this by getting the robotics facility fast for the observers, and then also getting some Warp Prisms, and just doing more Warp Prism harass. Again, the core of my army are the Zealots and Stalkers, and then all of a sudden, the logic of what to do in that situation is really fun. Because, think about this. You could get a Colossus, or 2 more Warp Gates. Huh. You could get 2 more Warp Gates, and not even have to spend the gas. Huh. And if I'm doing that, maybe I can just skip the robotics facility altogether, and that's another Warp Gate I could get. So suddenly, instead of going 3 Warp Gate plus cute set of units, you're going 7 Warp Gate, but with just Zealots and Stalkers. Whoa! Or you can get another expansion up. Whoa! So I really want to do a little review piece on that, just because it's kind of cool. And with this whole army, the choice that I was saying of Warp Prism seems natural. Now the choice of getting a later Twilight Council for the Zealot leg upgrade also seems natural. I like that quite a bit. I like that quite a bit. So Fubi K says, Day 9, when you do an early harass and successfully do it, how can you be sure it's safe to expand if you have few units left to defend? So now we're starting to get into the real nitty-gritty, the hard part of any strategy game, which is transitions. So let's take Reapers, because that has a pretty obvious transition. So I'm making a whole bunch of Reapers at the start of the game. A lot of Reapers, and I save up money and I can expand, and I made a lot of Reapers. What do I do to stay alive? Well, you're going to be threatened by, basically, let's just take Zerglings and Roaches for now. Zerglings, I think you're going to be okay if you've just made a lot of Reapers. But what about the Roaches? Well, hey, since I already have all these barracks with Tech Lab anyways, I will start making Marauders after I build my expansion, and I can smoothly transition into staying alive. Or let's take a person who opens up with Hellion Harass early on. If you open up with Hellion Harass early on, how do you defend against Zerglings? Okay, well, you have a bunch of Roaches you already have set up. Well, how do you defend against... I completely misworded that. How do you deal with Zerglings early on? Well, you already have all these Hellions that are good against dealing with Zerglings. Okay, we're set. Well, how do I deal with some sort of Mutalisk problem coming up? Well, because you already have a factory, you can start getting that armory pretty early on, and you can get your Thors out pretty early on. Or if he's getting Roaches, you can start getting tanks pretty early on because you already have this factory. Or you have this barracks that isn't doing anything, so you can begin getting the Marauders, again, to deal with those Roaches. You start thinking of ways to start from the position you're in and have it dump into the correct defense. So I really wouldn't say, how do I know when I have the safe number of units? A lot of times it's, what can you get away with getting? And is that adequate to defend what you have set up? Another example, like another Terran example, is if you go for some sort of Banshee rush with Cloak. Pretty straightforward thing. How do you defend against some early pushes? Well, have you been making Marines the whole time? Can you do something with that? Have you been using that factory this whole time? Can you do something with that? That tech lab that you used to make the Banshee, do you still need that? Can you do something with that? And as you start getting more creative and you say something like, well, I mean, I'm really getting one Banshee, and then I'm going to need... Or I'm really getting one Banshee, and I have a few Marines, and I need tanks. So let me switch the starport off that tech lab that I used to get the Banshee. I'll start making tanks with that tech lab, and then I'll make a medevac out of that starport so I can heal the 8 Marines I've been making out of my one barracks constantly this whole game. Is that an adequate defense? Yeah, alright, cool. And then you can start doing cool stuff with that. And that's the word I use for that is lean. We're not looking for anything more to help us defend. We're saying, how do I use what I have to help me defend? So it's that sort of thing that you should play with. And if, for instance, you're having problems with big zealot pushes with your defense, you say things like, with what I have, how do I defend against zealots? And if you have a factory with a reactor, you can begin making a lot of Hellions. And if you have a starport with a tech lab, you can begin making a lot of Banshees and that sort of good stuff. So. Oh, so here's a good question by Docon101. As Zerg, how do you deal with relentless aggression? And to extend this question, as any race, how do you deal with relentless aggression? The answer is to just get these small marginal edges, because, as I flatten my hair spike, any aggression that your opponent does is an investment, so they need to do positive damage in a big way to make it even again. If I invest 3 Templar in a Storm Drop and I lose the Warp Prism, or actually, even if I don't lose the Warp Prism, that's 200 for a Warp Prism, and then another 150 for the Templar in minerals, that's 350 minerals, then 450 gas, and I had to research Storm. Oh, geez, that's a huge amount of money I have to really just crush the shit out of you with to make it even again. So, I mean, for instance, when I was watching Idra play that game, and how many Roaches he lost, and how many Zerglings he lost, I still think he was looking pretty damn good. In fact, the one thing I think that Idra could have done is just never use the Zerglings in the battle ever, just use the Roaches to continue to push those Reapers back and just take the hit. Sure, he lost, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 Roaches early on. That's a lot of Roaches to lose to Reapers. But 15 Reapers that are soon to be irrelevant units, wow, yeah, you're really even in the score there. So In the face of relentless aggression, try to buckle down and focus on the little things like, am I still making depots? Am I not forgetting to make more workers? Am I not messing up my macro? That is what's going to pull you ahead if someone's just punishing you as best they can at your front. Not something fancy like, oh yeah, you just get this unit up and oh, the key is counter drops and all that good stuff. All that good stuff. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I like this question from Gadianton, who says, Dear Day 9, JP always mentions how you think the maps are too small. What would you change about the current SC2 maps? Do you feel it affects some of the current balance issues? I do think the maps are a little small. I want some bigger maps. I want some more ideas about controlling space. Because that was the defining feature in Brood War, was units that controlled space. Scourge controlled space in the air. Lurkers shut down movement paths on the ground. Mines and tanks shut down movement paths on the ground. Reavers and Templars shut down movement paths on the ground. I like that quite a bit. I would like to see that more. So I would like this. Oh yeah, someone mentions this. One of the most consistent comments I got at when I met people live in Cologne, Germany, at again the Intel Extreme Masters Global Challenge, is people came up to me and were like, "Dude, you look so fat on your webcam, and you're not fat at all in real life." And I was like, "Thank you." I got that like 9 times. Like so many people said that, and I don't know why. I think it's because I do it. I have my webcam down low. Maybe I could do like a MySpace cast, like, "Hey guys, this is Day 9 here, you know, I'll try to look all good. I'll Photoshop it so I don't look like I have a tummy." Yeah, even my arms look smaller from this angle, but that's okay. This is intimate. You get that personal view. And it really helps accentuate my chin and my chipped tooth. But you know what? It's the way it was meant to be. It's the way it was meant to be. Yes, indeed. So I'm actually going to leave with this, because here's a question that Dubs Sedition says. Day 9, is it better to fast expand and defend as Zerg, or is it better to one base and fight off the initial push and then expand? What I want to do is I want to answer that by giving some ideas for options on how to deal with stuff as I lean farther and farther back in a more relaxed pose. Yeah. Little One was, I believe it was Apollo who was asking Little One about how would you defend against this Reaper harass, and Little One said, oh, I just wouldn't get a gas. I would expand way earlier than any of these other players are, and then I would just get 5 queens and spine crawlers. Brilliant! Why does that work? Because the queens can take a ton of hits, like a ton of hits, from those Reapers, in the same way the Roaches were taking tons of hits in the game we just saw in buying Idra time. And then, once the spine crawlers are up, they have range 7. They can just poke the Reapers right in the eye, no aggression can really be done. And then Queens plus Spine Crawlers is going to be really hard to bust, and you get a shit ton of drones, and you get the economic lead. Cool! Or what about getting Roaches, and then teching to Aspire very, 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 very quickly? The big problem that Reapering players will have is that they don't really have the best transition to anti-air. Sure, you have 5 barracks, so you can just pump some Marines out, but you're kind of pinned back again. So why not give that a shot? Just skip the queens, get some Roaches, try to get as many drones as you can, but get that Spire ASAP, and you get some Mutalisks up, and you kind of shut down a lot of harass. What are some other ones? Oh yeah, here's the way I deal with Reapers. I just go ahead and expand early on, and here's a huge tip for dealing with Reapers. This is so good. You're going to love this. When you send Zerglings after Reapers, don't ever retreat with your Zerglings. Don't ever retreat, ever. Just send them. Just say, go Zerglings. And no matter how good his Reaper micro is, he is going to be really far away from you by the time he's done killing all your Zerglings. And if you can just keep doing this, just continue buying time with speed Zerglings, you're going to get your Spire up really fast. This is what we've seen throughout the Intel Extreme Masters Tournament. Players like Demaga getting a lot of Zerglings until he can get a Spire up. But again, I want to throw out that idea so you guys have more options. These are just things that I've experimented with to pretty good degrees of success. So without any further ado, I'm really, really, really tired. So I'm going to take my jet lag butt to the shower. I'm going to shave this pretty beard. And then I'm going to, oh shit, laundry. Oh, I have to do my laundry before I get in the airplane. Oh. I do not want to do my laundry. Oh, that's such a big problem. Oh, I have to do my laundry. Wow. I'm debating whether I should just go to bed and get up at like 2 in the morning and do it. That's close. That's actually really close. Wow. Well, I gotta go, guys. This is important that I leave. So, I'm gonna say goodbye. Mwah. I gotta do my laundry now. Oh, that's such terrible news. I'm so sad. Oh, God. That ends the daily. I'm done. And I'm gonna be in MLG in Raleigh. You should come meet me. I'd love to meet you. See ya.